Hello everyone, welcome to Zaref Game Dev. In this video, we are going to create the angle launch game in Unity. So currently, I have an empty Unity project opened up, and we'll do all the asset importing. And you'll only be able to see the folders. Extra windows are not captured, so just go along with it. So it's just going to be another simple hyper casual game. We just jump from one circle to another, and if we miss that angle, then it will go out of the bounds and the player will just die. So most of the layout and everything is going to be the same. Only the player script or the player movement, player logic, whatever you call, is going to be different. And obstacles, they'll have some data, and we'll do a little bit of event scripting. So we'll call event, and depending on that event, we'll update our obstacles color. So let's start creating it in Unity. So we have an empty Unity project opened up, and the first thing we are going to do is change this project to an Android build, because there will be a couple of packages we don't need, the test runner, and there'll be so many packages we don't need. So we'll first change our project to Android, because most of the games are supposed to be built in Android. I mean, whichever hyper casual game we are creating. And after that, we'll start uninstalling our packages. Getting with only controls is doing no, doesn't matter. So we'll go inside package manager, and it will list all of our packages, and till it loads all of our packages, let's bring our editor folder, so which is going to be the editor for the angle launch. So I'll just bring it inside Unity. And where is the project? So these are going to be the colors we'll be using, which includes all of our colors, and the packages are still not loaded. So let's bring in all of our assets, which are going to be from the first game we have created, the Trick. So all of our packages are loaded now. Let's uninstall whatever we won't need. So we don't need Visual Studio Editor. I mean VS Code Editor, cause we are using Visual Studio. Hmm. We don't need visual scripting. We are coding ourselves. Then version control. And just this is the first and the last version. We are not going to touch it again. I mean, if you want to create some other game out of it, you may like need to use plastic SCM. It's going to be in the package for the Unity's own version control system. You can use GitHub, but be sure to know how to handle it. And after that, toolchain in Linux, no, we don't need it. We'll make it for testing in the Windows platform. And finally, it's going to go inside an Android build. And also, we don't need the JetBrains editor. And our text mesh pro is showing currently here right now, but it's not added. So we'll update our Visual Studio editor, and we'll start bringing in our scenes. So except for the editor, I'll bring all four of my scenes inside, not scenes, all four of my folders inside Unity. And what it will do, it will create one more scenes one folder, and we'll go inside the main menu scene, which is going to ask us to import the text mesh pro, which we are going to do it. And we'll first delete our scenes folder and rename our current scenes folder to scenes. So we have our scene set up, the packages are also set up, And inside our builds, let's first add our main menu and remove the default scene. And finally, we'll open our gameplay scene and add it to the build. So our game should be working perfectly fine. So we'll check it after going inside our main menu and after playing our game. So we'll play it inside a simulator and you can use whatever you like. There are almost all of the simulators inside, so we'll just use a default iPhone 12. And there should be a problem for the project settings, so maybe some of the text may not have like the underline, or uh, it's for the font. So I think we should disable the warning so it doesn't show up. And that should be it for the settings. And after we are set up, let's see if our game is working perfectly fine. So if we hit play, it is moving and it is shooting perfectly good. And currently, this is the previous game. We can go and move around the scene. So this was our previous game. Now we are not going to change the functionality for the main menu. Let's just rename it to angle launch and remove our disk, and we'll change the colors a little. And I mean, everything's going to be changing for the colors. So this is going to be blue, everything else is going to be white. And for our all three of them, we'll change them to white color. And for our text, we'll change both of our text to our dark bluish color, which is the current one. And our image is going to be similarly blue color. So this looks a little bit better. You can have other functionalities, but this is just going to be our main menu. Nothing different as we have already did for the previous 4 to 5 games. I mean, this should be the fifth game. And after that, let's go inside the gameplay. Everything inside the player will just delete it. And our bar, we are also going to delete it. So in the end, we have a score with our prefabs. We'll also delete our explosion red, and we'll rename this explosion green to just a simple explosion. Set its color to white. Am I recording? Yeah. And it's going to be similar explosion, but its emission rate is going to be a little bit different. So instead of 20, we'll just use 10, so it just spawns only. Let's increase a little bit. Count random between two constants. No, just one constant. Maybe random between two constants, and it will spawn from 8 to 16 particles, and everything else is going to be similar. The shape is going to be similar, the renderer is going to be similar. And let's have it smaller size. And this is going to be our main scene. Similarly, we'll start changing our scene color, which is going to be the light blue. And we'll change the end panel color, which is similarly the light blue, and everything else is going to be white. Nothing much around here. And score, which is going to be automatically calculated. We have those functions inside our game manager. And similarly, the all the buttons, the restart, the sound toggle, and our home button, all the functions are there. So there's not going to be much inside our canvas. The score is also going to be at the top, so it's not going to change. Now let's start editing. I mean, start adding our, what should we add first? Mm, mm, mm. Let's add the obstacles. So create empty and we'll call it obstacles. And to create our obstacles, we'll need to create our player. So this is our player. Let's position it at 0, 0. And our player is going to be positioned at 10 and 0, which is going to affect our camera size, which is around 23.4, and it is the rightmost position, and to everything fit correctly instead of scale with screen size, main camera. So okay, so everything's correct, and match height, so it's also going to be correct, so there is not much any problem. So we'll start adding our player. So instead of 0.75, it's going to be 0.64, and let's recalculate our circle collider. And similarly, it's going to have a rigid body because we need to have it detect collisions, and there's going to be a player script which is going to be different. So let's open up our player script, and we are just going to delete everything inside it because everything's just going to be different. And let's see what scripts do we need. So we have an obstacle script. We are going to need one more script which is for storing some data for the score. So we'll create that script, and these are all the scripts that we'll be needing. So it's just a pretty simple project, not much, 5 to 10 objects in each of the folders. And if the project gets bigger, we'll need to like have different folders for each of the things, and I don't know how to do it. That's why we are just going to create simple games. And let's see what script should we edit first and what should we not touch. So our audio manager, we are not going to touch it because it just changes the audio, which is directly we get it from the main menu. The constants, it has the two tags which are the bad one which we created for the first game, which is the death and the goal, which are they are just the default tags. I mean, we can use them, but we'll name it to something more good. The main menu manager is going to be the same. So all we need to change is going to be inside our game manager, in which we'll create events for when we score something. So it will tell all of the objects to update the value for their own color. So it will calculate where we want to move next. And there's going to be our score, which is going to have an ID because all the 6 points are different and we need to know what we are colliding with. And similarly, our obstacle, which I don't think we'll need it, but we'll create it. So let's start editing from our constant script first. That's the easiest one. And I have Visual Studio opened up. I just updated it to the latest one, which is the 2022 version. And for the two tags, instead of the depth and the goal, we are going to have the score, which is going to have tag of score, and our obstacle, obstacle, which is going to have a tag of obstacle. And we'll just use it as that as. Let's increase the size 2 more times so we can see it more clearly. So that is going to be our constant script, and let's just delete all the functions inside our player script. We'll start coding it from the beginning. Similarly, we are not going to need. Hello? Uh, Somebody called right now, so maybe let's just leave them. I'll make the phone to silent. And let's see what should we code next. We'll first code our. I think we won't be needing our obstacle. Yeah, we won't be needing our obstacle because our obstacle is just a trigger. So let's just remove it from here and I'll just directly delete it from the Unity project. And the type of namespace obstacle could not be found, so that's going to be problem with the scripts. And let's fix that up so we don't have the obstacle. And inside our spawn obstacle, instantiate target prefab. What just happened? Okay, so now we are able to see where's the error. So we'll just create our spawn obstacle. So that error is fixed. We don't have the obstacle. Score is also a new script. Audio manager, constants, and main menu manager. So let's put them towards the right. We are not going to touch him. So first things first. Let's code our player first. So it's the most difficult one, but we'll code it first. So what is going to happen inside our player? So it's going to move. So let's create a serialized field. Looks better. 2022 version at least. And first we'll have a private vector3 of start position, which is going to be uh, calculating for the start center position. We don't need to calculate it. We'll directly assign it. Then we are going to have a serialized field for the private float, rotate radius, then rotate speed, and finally our move speed. So when we shoot our ball, at what speed it's going to move. And we'll create a private vector3 of our center position, which is going to store a position for our center. And after that we'll have a private boolean for can move, private boolean for can rotate, and our private boolean for can move, can rotate, and our private boolean for can shoot. And after that we'll create a private float for the rotate angle. So when we want to move, we'll just increase the rotate angle and it will move in that direction by calculating the position. So we'll see how we are going to do. Then we have the private vector3 for the move direction, and finally we'll have a serialized field for the private GameObject, and it's going to be our explosion prefab, which we are going to spawn when we collide with an obstacle, and it will trigger the game over event. And serialized field private audio clip, and this are going to be the move clip, then our point clip, and finally our loose clip. And if you create a high score, you can also have one more clip, but currently it is going to be enough. So we are going to start rotating, and when we start rotating we can also shoot, but we cannot move. And after that our center position, it's going to be our start center position, and our current rotate angle is going to be 0f. I mean, you can, yeah, let's just call it 0f. And after that, inside our update function will first check if we can shoot, and finally we'll check for the input dot get mouse button down of 0. It is slow. Then we'll shoot, which we are going to create a function. So let's create a private void shoot. Please wait for an edited command of X. Yeah, it is slow. And we'll create the function later, but what's going to happen inside our fixed update? So first we are going to check if we can rotate, then we are going to rotate. So our current rotate angle is going to be increased by the rotate speed amount, and will multiply by time dot fixed delta time, and depending on that we are going to get the move direction, which is going to be new vector 3 for mathf dot cos of uh, current rotate angle and multiplied by, so our rotate angle is in degree, so we need to convert it to radians. So degree to we'll need to use mathf dot degree to radian, and finally let's copy this mathf dot cos, and instead of cos we are going to use the sine, so cos theta sine theta, and finally it will give us our direction, and in the z it's going to be 0, and just in case there's any error we'll normalize it. That should not be, but uh, it's better to have it as one. So we have a move direction, we have a rotate angle, then we'll calculate the transform dot position, and it's going to be move direction, and we'll multiply the move direction by our rotate radius. So it will give us a point on the circumference of the circle, which is going to be our current position. And if our rotate angle, if it is greater than equal to 360f, then we'll just reset it to 0. And else, if we can move, then what we are going to do is transform dot position plus is equals to move speed multiplied by time dot fixed delta time, and finally multiplied by the move direction, which we are going to set it inside the shoot function. So whenever we shoot, the first thing we are going to do is audio manager dot instance dot play sound. So we are going to play the move clip, and to not have any errors, first now we'll comment it. We are going to start rotating and stop shooting, and finally we are going to start moving, and our move direction, it is going to be transform dot position, and we'll subtract the center position, so which is the current center position, and it will give us a direction vector along the radian. And what we need to do is here we'll need to normalize it because we don't know what its value is going to be. So that should do the trick. And finally, when the game ends, so let's create a private void end game. So when we hit an obstacle, uh, let's just call our audio manager dot instance dot play sound, and we are going to play the loose clip, and now we'll comment it. So what's going to happen when we end the game? So we'll first destroy the game object, and before destroying the game object, we are going to destroy the explosion prefab at transform.position quaternion.identity after 5 seconds or whatever time you want, and we'll call the game manager dot instance dot endgame, so which will just show up our endgame panel. And when is this going to happen? So on collision, on not collision, on trigger enter 2D, and if collision dot compare tag, and wherever tag is constants dot tags dot obstacle, then we are going to end the game. And finally, why did we create this function? Because similarly, if collision.GameObject.compare tag of score, then we need to check. Let's just do the checking later. So we'll call the audio manager dot instance dot play sound, and we hit. Now we are going to score a point. And after that, our center position is going to be collision.GameObject.transform.position. Our moving is going to be false, our rotating is going to be true, and we can also shoot. And we need to get the current angle, which is going to be, let's first get the tangent, which is transform dot position dot y minus center pose dot y, and we'll divide. So this will give us the direction vector, and direction vector is y coordinate divided by x coordinate, will give us our value. So our current angle, so rotate angle is going to be mathf dot tan of our tangent, and not tan, inverse tan, which is arctan. So it will give us our tangent, and we need to call game manager dot instance dot update score, and it will add 1 to the score. And what we need to do is we need to pass the ID of whatever we are colliding. So we need to get that ID, which is going to be whatever we are colliding with. We need to pass its ID so we can, I don't know. So let's just update score for now. So it's going to update the score and start rotating to the next game object. And currently, let's have it as it is. Now let's go inside our game manager. So inside our game manager, we have max spawn offset, which we are not going to need. Start pose, also not going to need. Then we have the active and the inactive sound sprite. Don't know. But we are going to have two more events. So public static event, which is going to be of the type action, and to use events we'll need to use using system dot just using system will be fine. So it's going to be of the type action, and we'll need to pass a parameter which is of the integer, and the first event is going to be the update color. So what ID's color we need to update, and the final is going to be the update move color. And let's create a CLI field for the private integer for the total number of targets, and one more private integer for the current target index and our current move index. So current move index is going to be our ID for currently where we are rotating, and our current target index is going to be the ID for when we hit where the target is going to be called. And in the start, instead of I don't think we'll ever going to need the we are not going to need the spawn obstacle. Instead of spawn obstacle, what we are going to do is first we'll set the current target index to 0 and current move index to 0. So our move index is already 0, we don't need to know anything, and our temp is going to be random dot range, and we'll need to use unity engine dot random dot range, and we need to go from 0 till total number of targets. So it will give us a temporary integer, and while if our temporary integer is equals to our move index, then we'll reset it again. Hmm, 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 hmm. Temporary integer is equals to current target index, then we'll reset it, and what it's just going to do is just set it to temp. Our current target index is going to be set to temp, and we'll pass our update color, and we'll invoke with the current target index. So we are going to tell the current target to change its color. So whichever is the ID for the current target index, change your color to the blue one. And similarly, we'll call the update move color. So wherever we are moving, color yourself to, I mean, maybe white, and it's going to be similar when our update score function is called. So here we are going to just set it again and call the event. So we'll set a temp, and which is not the current target, and if we reach there, I mean our current move index can also be the current target because we have reached the current target, and our move index is also a valid target. So that should be it, and we also need to update our current move index to be here. We need to pass an int current, which is going to be the current. So we are going to pass target is the current. Okay, so where we hit, we are going to start moving around that circle, and when we hit, we can get its ID inside our player. I think we had to create an ID here. So int ID is going to be where we are going to get it inside our score. So here it's going to have a public int of ID and a serialized field private, and we are going to have a color for the active color, then inactive color, and finally for our move color, or maybe target color. And active is going to be the move color, and finally we'll create a serialized field for the private sprite renderer, and we'll just call it SR here, and we'll create two functions which are going to be private void on target set, and here we'll pass an int of target ID, and we'll check our sr.color, and let's have an underscore here. So what our color is going to be, so we'll check if our target ID is equals to ID, then we are going to set it to the target color. If it is not, we'll set it to the inactive color. And on move set, so let's create a private void on move set int move ID. So similarly, we'll set the color if our move ID is equals to ID, then we'll set it to the active color, else will not change its color, so it only needs to be changed to white. And we need to subscribe to these events, so we'll create an on enable and on disable, and our game manager dot instance dot, I mean we can directly subscribe it, game manager dot update color plus is equals to on target set, and game manager dot update move color plus is equals to on move set, and we'll copy those two lines and let's paste it here, and let's unsubscribe it. So what it's just going to check if the current ID is the target, then we'll change its color to the target, or it's going to be the inactivated color. And similarly, if our current ID is the ID for the move, then we'll change it to the active, which is going to be the white. And after that, we'll change its color to the darker one, or the normal, which is. And similarly, inside our player, we already called the update score, and collision.GameObject.get component. We already have our score object, and it's going to be its ID, and here we'll pass the ID. So everything's connected perfectly well. I mean, I just have to see and type it everything, but you can understand how it works. So let's go through the code once again. So game manager, everything's perfectly fine. We are just setting the target index to be the random from which is not 0. So it will be anything from 1 till 5. And the total number is 6. And similarly inside the update score, similarly we are changing the target to anyone which is not the current target. And inside our score, when we are calling the target ID, if our target ID does not match the current ID, then we'll deactivated it, which is going to be dark bluish color. And if the target ID matches, then it's going to be white color, and if it does not match, it will be the blue color. And that's it. Now let's see what we need to do for our Unity. So we had the obstacles. Now we'll create our obstacles because we have the border set up. So our obstacles are just going to be boxes which are going to be outside the boundary, Let's reset its transform to 0 so it does not move somewhere else. And first we'll create our first obstacle. So to have not our namings messed up, we'll first go to preferences and project settings, player settings, and let's go inside editor and let's set it to underscore. And let's first create our OBS TSCLA obstacle under /1. And we also need to create two tags. So the first one is going to be for our score and the second one is going to be for our obstacle. And this one's going to tag obstacle, add a box collider 2D, which is going to be set as a trigger. And it is going to be at 12.0. Its size is going to be 2 cross 48. We'll duplicate the obstacle 1, rename it to obstacle 2, position it at -12, duplicate the obstacle 2, positioned at 0, 24.5, and it's also obstacle 3, 2 cross 24, 24 cross 2. Duplicate our obstacle 3, position it at -24.5, and these 5 obstacles are going to be a boundary. So whenever a player collides with this obstacles, it is going to die. I mean, not literally die, but the game's going to finish. And let's set our player params first. So our start position is going to be at 8, which is the start center position. Rotate radius is going to be 2. Rotate speed is going to be 9. 4 seconds for one turn. Our move speed is going to be 10. There's going to be an explosion prefab which has already been created. And we also have all of our clips which are the move, update, and the point which is for the update. So everything's hooked up. And we don't need the build settings. The similar is also fine. Now what we need to do is create our score. So let's create an empty and we'll call it score. Let's reset its transform and give it a tag of score. So what our score is going to have, it's going to have a sprite renderer, which is going to be a circle of size 1.6, and I don't think I have circle here. So for now, let's use the knob. So what did I create? There should be a circle. Okay, that's the default circle. So let me bring inside the circle. It should be inside angle launch resources. And there's my circle. And let's push it inside Unity. Instead of having the default circle, I'm going to use my high-res circle, which has 512 by 512. So this is our default circle. Instead of simple, we'll have it sliced 1.6 by 1.6 and change the scale to 1 cross 1. So as you can see, this is the larger one and that's the smaller one. Now there's a problem with the color ID. We'll also fix it up. We'll create a circle collider 2D, which is going to be a trigger. And after that, it will also need a score script to store all of our IDs. So let's add the score script. And currently its ID is 0, but we need to set our active color. So our active is going to be 196, 101. And maximum. So I think active is going to be a little bit darker. Our inactive is going to be lighter 19991, and our target is going to be white 00 and 98. So that should be all of our colors, and our transform is set to 0 and everything's set up, and we'll save it as a prefab. Now let's add all of our prefabs. So first we'll create a center, and this is our center positioned at 00, and we'll create an empty. We'll call it spoke under slash 1, which is going to be nothing but to this spoke we'll add our score, which is going to be positioned at 8. So as you can see, it's at the start, and to have uh, create a hexagon, we'll just add 60 to this circle every time. So plus 60, that is our spoke 5. Finally, plus 60 to our spoke 6, and one more plus 60 to our spoke 7. Now each of the spokes needs to have a different ID. So the second one's going to have an ID of 1, third one's going to have an ID of 2, fourth one's going to have an ID of 3, 4, and finally the last one's going to have an ID of 5. And I don't think I missed anything. Total number of targets is going to be 6. And we also have the player setup, the score setup, the explosion setup, and let's uncomment all the audio scripts inside our player so we can see what errors are there. So let's go inside our main menu, save the scene. uh, don't forget to save it or it may create problems. The variables SR of score is not set. Okay, so we'll need to assign it. Let's go inside our prefabs and we need to assign our sprite renderer, and let's now hit play, and we'll need to, okay, so it is moving and it is working as we want it to be. But I think there's a problem. There is not any problem. It's just our end game is showing instantly, so we don't have, yeah. So we need it to be set to a coroutine. So let's create start coroutine game over, and we'll need to create a private enumerator, and we'll call this game over and put our code inside that. And to see all of our particles we'll need to wait for 1.6 seconds, which is going to be lifetime for all of our particles. So yeah, and that should be it for the game manager, and the only thing that's remaining is a particle system for our player. And after this code, our coding should be finished, and let's see how the game looks right now. So this is the main menu, everything we already done before. It moves around this scene, goes to the next target. There is also the sound, and there's the end particle system, and we got our sound. The sound is also perfectly muted. Now let's add the particle system to our player and our game should be finished. So let's collapse all of them, add a particle system, and we'll move up As you can see, it is currently there. So it's going to be a repeating one, and our duration, it is going to be whatever you want. Size, it's going to be 0.3, or maybe we can have it. Let's have it at 0.5. There's no rotation, no color, gravity modifier 0. Simulation space is going to be world. And inside our emissions, our rate over time is going to be 8. And the shape, it's going to be, let's have it as circle at the minimum radius. And our start velocity, let's set it to 0, so you won't be able to see it right now. And inside our renderer, let's set the material to sprites default, and our order in layer to be, which is from the back. Doesn't matter whatever it is, just everything's just on top of each other. But inside our texture sheet animation, we are going to add our circle sprite. So now it should be set up, and let's go inside our main menu, and let's see if we can see our particle system. So there's so much. So let's go to our gameplay and our player, particle system, start, lifetime, duration, looping, animation, rate over time is 8. There should not be any problems with it. Let's just have that 4, and let's go inside main menu, and we'll just simulator. So as you can see, it is working correctly fine, but we need to decrease the rate over time. We need to decrease its lifetime. There is no problem with rate over time. So let's go inside our gameplay. We'll decrease its start lifetime to 0.8, and spawn rate is going to be 4 every second. Should be fine. Let's have it 8, and we also need it to have its size over lifetime to be steadily decreased. And now let's save the scene and let's hit play. We are able to have it as a trail. So still it is too much. So what should we do to increase its start lifetime? So there is no need to increase. Decrease its emission rate to 4. Speed is too slow. Size over lifetime is also good. So decrease the emission rate and delay. Yeah, that should be more than enough. So that was it for the game, and we should be finished after this. Looks good enough. So as you can see, now it is looking like a trail. And let's have it fit to screen. And okay, we lost. So this is just the simple game angle launch. We have just the basic player movement, and there are also events. We are also calling the functions, and spawning we are directly just adding to the gameplay scene. So it's a little bit difficult right now, but you can change all the different parameters and finally you will have the game. So that was it. And if you guys watched till now, thank you guys for watching. I've been speaking on and on for 1 hour. Hmm. It's too difficult to stop talking when you are recording a video, or else the I'll also get bored and the video may also get boring. And if you guys watched till now, thank you guys for watching and do subscribe to the channel and also like the video. And currently, for almost 5 to 10 games, they are going to a simple one, and after that, we'll start creating uh, again more difficult games like we did before. So we had the platformer and all the different types. If I get an idea, I'll start creating, but they'll take much more time, like around a month or so. So we'll see it afterwards. Thank you guys for watching and see you guys in the next video. Hello.